Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Average. Welcome back to a beginner's guide to Bun. In today's episode, we're going to be looking into implementing a live chat using Bun's implementation of their WebSockets. For those of you who don't know, WebSockets are a form of a server that you can connect to and you can stay online. You can send messages to the socket server and you can also receive messages from the socket server live. This is why it's used in things like live chats or anything that requires sort of real-time interaction. So how do we implement this ourselves? We're going to be starting a new project. So I just have an open folder here, as you can see. I'm going to right-click and open in terminal, and in here I'm just going to type in bun init, and we're going to select a blank project type. I'm also going to do mkdir client, and this is going to make a new folder for our client, because the way that a WebSocket works is there's typically a server and then there's a client, which is kind of like HTTP server and a web browser. It's similar to that. We're making our own client and our own server here. So let's head into the client directory, and we're also going to type in bun init, and we're just going to do a blank project as well. So let's head back into the root directory of both of our client and socket. So just in the first project that we created, and I'm just going to type in code and a period to open the relative directory in VS Code. All right, so here we have it. This is our Bun project with our client here, as well as a separate project inside. First things first, we're going to head over to our index.ts and get rid of the console.line. And we're going to say console.log starting bun live chat, just so we have some kind of feedback that we're actually starting the server. And we can also add server so we have a bit more clarity as to what's going on. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is bun.serve. And yes, we use bun.serve to create WebSocket servers. What's actually going to happen is when we send a request to our Bun WebSocket server, we're going to use the default fetch as we did on web. We're going to say request and server, just like so. And inside of here, we are going to do if server.upgrade. And this is because on the HTTP request, we're going to upgrade it, or at least attempt to upgrade it to a socket connection. Inside of here, we just need to pass in request, and we can just say return, as it's going to upgrade the request so that it supports a socket connection. Otherwise, we can say return new response, and we're just going to say upgrade failed, and that will be a status code of 500. Okay, so you'll probably see that we are getting some errors here. The entire thing actually is an error, and that's because I need to add a new field for WebSocket. So the WebSocket, I believe, requires a message callback, and here we're going to put the WebSocket in the parameters along with the message that's being received. So now if I just type in ws send message, essentially what this will do is it will just take whatever message it received and it will just send it back to the client that sent the message. This is what we're going to do for now for seeing if we're actually getting proper information from the client. So that's it for our socket server for now. We're going to head into our client directory, and in here, just get rid of that. And we can say const socket equals new WebSocket, and we need to do WS, which stands for WebSocket, instead of HTTP, and then we can say localhost 3000, as that's going to be the default port. Now this is basically us connecting to the WebSocket. With this socket, we can add event listeners, so we can say open. Now this event listener will give you a callback with an event argument, and basically what this is doing is it's listening to see, okay, did the connection open up or not? And if it did, we're going to just say console.log connection successful, and we can also send something back to our socket, and we can just make it a string. We're going to say hi. The reason we're doing this is we want to see if we're actually able to get communication back and forth. And what we can do now is open up a terminal window like so. We're actually going to head into package.json, and I'm going to add two scripts. And the first script is going to be client, and this is going to do bun run client / index.ts. And I'm also going to do server, and this is just going to run the root index.ts. So this is just giving us a way to easily start up a client and a server. So now if I type in bun server, just like so, we'll get starting bun live chat server, and it's open. If I open up a new terminal and I type in bun client, we will get a connection successful, and we don't actually get any response back from the server, even though we did send a hi back to our socket here. And the reason why we're not getting anything back is because we are just instantly closing the connection after we've connected, which isn't what we want. What we actually want is we want the client to eventually be able to type in whatever message they want to send. And to do that, we're going to use nodes readline interface, and we can import that just by going import Readline from Readline. This is a node feature. So we can say .create interface, and we're going to give it the input, which will be our std in, our standard input. That is basically just whatever the user is typing into the console. We can also say output, and that will be std out. That's going to be the output that the terminal is going to present to the user. Lastly, we can give it a prompt, and we're going to say send. We're going to use an A angle bracket like so, and then just a space. And the reason why is because when we connect, we just want to say send, and then the user will type their message and it will send that to the socket server. Okay, so next we're going to create a new function underneath all of this stuff, and we're going to say setup input. We're also going to pass in our WebSocket here in the parameters, and then we're going to say rl.prompt. This will ensure that we are continuing to listen for any user input. Okay, so inside of our open here, we are going to actually send the hi message after we do setup input and just pass it our socket here. And also we need to add a new event listener for message, and this will handle incoming messages from the socket server on the client. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to do a try catch, and we're going to say readline.clearline process.std out and 0. The reason why we're doing this is because when we get a new message, we want to get rid of our prompt, you know, the send text, and we want to replace it with whatever is incoming from the server. We also need to set the cursor back to the very first character. If there is an error, we're going to catch, but we're not going to do anything with it. All right, and now we're going to say console.log. This is going to be outputting our message from the socket server to our client's console, and we're going to cast our event.data to a string and log that. And then we're going to say rl prompt true because we want to reprompt the user after asking it for any messages they would like to send. So this is basically interrupting our readline interface kind of loop where we're always looking to see if the user is sending a message, because we have received a message and we want to output that first. Otherwise, we're just going to lock incoming messages because we're looking for a prompt. So now if I start up my Bun client, you'll notice that we get connection successful, hi, and then we'll also get our prompt where the user is going to type in their message to send to the server. So I can type in whatever, and it won't actually do anything yet because we haven't handled that. What we can do to handle it is inside of our setup input function, we can say rl.on, and this is similar to our socket add event listener. This is going to look for incoming messages, and we can do that by saying line. So when a new line is entered by the user, we're going to do this callback here. We can just get the raw text, and we're going to do a const line equals, and we're just going to do raw.trim. So we're removing any leading or trailing white space from whatever the user is sending, just kind of cleaning up their message a little bit. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to see, is the line equal to exit? This is going to be our exit command. So if the client wants to stop their connection to the WebSocket, this is where that's going to be done. Console.log, closing connection to server, and then we can say socket.close, super easy. And then we're just going to kill the process, giving it an exit code of 0, which means the process ended successfully. Something else we're going to do is we're going to take this try catch readline stuff, and we're going to make a new function just above our setup function. We're going to call it clear input so we can use this in multiple places. We're going to be using it here for our incoming messages, and then we're also going to use it here for when the user is sending a message. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to get rid of the send prompt formatting that we have at the beginning of their lines when the user sends a message, because we don't want to duplicate it. We will be receiving the incoming connection that the client sent the message in the first place, so we don't really need to have that. It's just going to clutter the console. What we're going to do next actually is create a new folder inside of our root, and we're going to call this shared, and in here we're going to say types, and we're going to create a new type called incoming message.ts, and in here we're going to type export type incoming message equals, and then we're going to give it some fields. The first field of which is going to be an action, and this is essentially going to describe what the message we're sending is supposed to do. It could be a join, it could be sending or leaving. And so we're going to say chat actions. And now we also need to create another type called chat actions. We're just going to do this right above here. And we're going to have join. So when the user joins, they might send a message that they're joining. We're going to have a send, and that's for sending messages. and then exit. So that's for when they leave. So now we can send an incoming message and we can give it an action, and this will represent what the user's trying to do. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to add an optional field, and this is going to be for any data that the user is going to send on top of this incoming message. This isn't how I would normally do it because this won't allow us to do strongly typed data for incoming messages, but for the sake of this video, we're going to keep it really simple and try not to get too misdirected with things that this video's topic isn't really about. Okay, so let's head back to our client index.ts, and right here under our clear input, we're going to create a payload using our brand new incoming message type. So instead of equals, actually, we're going to just do a colon, and we're going to give it a type of incoming message, not using HTTP, but using our own type. Make sure you're importing the right one. We want to use our own type that we just created. Then we can say action, and we're just going to write send because we are sending a message. And we can say data, message, and then raw, because essentially our message is going to be our argument from the callback where we're giving it the line text. So this is our payload. Now what we can do is we can say try, and we're going to socket.send our payload as stringified JSON, just like so. If that doesn't work, we are going to catch the error, and we're just going to say console error failed to send message, and then provide it the error at the end there. After this, we are just going to prompt again because the message has been sent. So maybe the user wants to send a new message. I don't know. We just need to continue that readline loop. So we can test this out now. If we say bun.client and we say something like hello, you'll notice that we get the JSON that we're sending to the server because the server is actually just sending that back to us. So let's head back to our server now, and let's actually make sure we're doing the right thing for the correct action type. Instead of just sending the raw JSON, why don't we do maybe a user ID just so we make it look a little bit nicer? Because right now, if multiple users are sending messages, there's no way to discern the different users. And also this just looks bad. It's not really a chat. Okay, so we're going to make a function up here, get WS data, get WebSocket data. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to get data that the user's sending, but not actually their message. We want to get their stored data. And we're going to create a new type called socket data. This is going to have a username so that we know, okay, this username is sending this message. For our get WS data, we're going to return WS as, and we're going to say data socket data. So we're basically forcing this to have a field called data, and we're going to say dot data. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is in our client, we need to actually allow us to give a username. So at the very top here, we're going to do a const values, destructured values from our favorite util parse args. And inside of here, we're going to add one option, and it's going to be username. It's going to be a type of string. It's going to allow a short form of this argument. That's just u. And then also we're going to give it a default value if it does not have one already. The default value will be, we can say guest, and then we're going to generate a random number with math.rand, and we're just going to multiply math.random by 100 so we get a proper integer value. Also, if you want to resolve this import, you can just add type here and it will resolve that since we're just importing incoming message as a type. We're not importing a class or anything like that. Okay, so we have our value here for our username, but we're not actually sending it to the server yet. So to do this, we're actually going to swap the place of the socket. We're just going to put it under our values because we want our values when we make the connection. And we're going to add a options body at the end of our socket as another parameter just after the URL here. And we're going to say headers cookie, and inside of our cookie, we're just going to say username equals, and we're going to provide it with our values dot username just like so. So we'll always be giving it a username as a cookie. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do here is back in our server, we're going to create a new array called sockets. And this is going to be a new set. And what is a set? A set is basically an array that can only really have the same value once. So it will not allow duplicate values. What this is going to do is store our user socket connections. And the reason we want to keep track of this is so when a user does send a message, we send it to all of the other sockets or the other users that are connected to our server. This also lets us do a new function, and we can say broadcast. And we want to add a message string inside of here. This is going to be a function that lets us broadcast a message to all the sockets that are connected. So we can say sockets.for each, and then we can say socket.send, and we're just going to give it the message like so. You'll notice socket is of type unknown. unknown. And this can be resolved by actually giving our set a type using these angle brackets here. We can say WebSocket just like so, and voila. Okay, so now we need to add a new callback for our opening of connections. Here we're going to use our get WS data function. We're going to say const data equals get WS data, pass in our WebSocket there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say sockets dot add, and we're going to add our WebSocket here. You'll notice we get an error, and that is because argument of type server WebSocket undefined is not assignable. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this here, the type that it's expecting, and we're going to use that for our set instead. Just paste it in like so, and that error should be resolved. Okay, and then we're going to say broadcast, and we're literally just going to add a message here that's going to have information. We're going to say data.username has joined the chat. Okay, so now we actually need to get our data. And so how do we do this? Well, when we are upgrading our request, we need to read the headers that we gave our server from the client. So we can give it a object, and in here we can say data. This is where we're going to tell the server what data we can use. All we're giving the server is a cookie. Now we do also need to grab our cookies by doing const cookies up here at the top, new bun.cookieMap, and we can say request headers.get cookie. And if we don't have any cookies being sent, we'll just give it an empty string value like so. And this is great because we can just do cookies.get, and we're going to say username just like so. That is the only cookie we're sending to our server. And now we're getting this issue here where it's saying type username string or null is not assignable to type undefined. That's something we can fix by giving our WebSocket an expected data type, and we're just going to give it an empty object as socket data. Now our WebSocket will always be expecting a socket data when it's sending messages. Here it will say, oh, argument of type is not assignable to parameter of type undefined. We can just take this socket data, and instead of undefined here, we can say socket data like so. That will resolve those issues. We do need to address this issue because it is possible that the string will be null, especially if the client is not the one that we made. Maybe it's a third-party one. So let's just give it a fallback value of unknown. So if the guest name is not actually present in the cookies, we're just going to say unknown like so. Now, if I run our server and I run our client again, you'll notice that we get this here, connection successful, guest 41. And then because I forgot to round it to an integer, it will have decimals, has joined the chat. Let's fix that really quick. So go back to our client here. And for this, I'm just going to do math.floor, and this will round down our math.random value so that we eliminate our decimals. As you can see, there we go. Connection successful. Guest 73 has joined the chat. If I were to connect with another client, let's make a new one here, and I say bun client. Guest 70 has joined the chat, and if I head over to our other client that was already connected, we'll get that as well. So there we go. We're really getting something working here. Something that we can do really quickly is we can do another callback. Instead of message or open, we're going to say close. This is going to be super similar to our open. We're actually going to say get WS data sockets dot delete, and we're going to give it the WebSocket that we're deleting, and then we're going to broadcast data dot username has left the chat. Okay. Again, if I start up my server, start up my client, we'll see guest 33 has joined the chat, and I start up another client, guest 57. And if I just say exit, that's our only command, we close the connection. And if I head back to our client that is connected, we'll see guest 57 has left the chat. Final thing that we're going to be doing here is actually just giving our messages some kind of formatting instead of outputting the raw JSON. So what we can do is we can say const incoming data equals, we're going to do json.parse, going to grab the message, except sometimes this may be sent as an array buffer. So if that's the case, type of message equals string. So if it's a string, we're just literally going to give it the message. But if it's not, if it's an array buffer, we're going to have to make a new text decoder and do a dot decode message. So this will give us our incoming data as a JSON object. What we're going to do is cast this to an incoming message from our shared types. As we saw before, this has an action that's given with it, and then also some data as a secondary. We're going to do a switch case, and we're going to say incoming data dot action, make a case for our send command. And inside of here, what we're going to do is say const message text equals incoming data dot message, just like so. We don't have strong typing, as I said, unfortunately, but we do know that that is present. If it isn't, we're just literally going to return. If it is present, we firstly need to capture our WS data that will have our username. Again, get WS data, pass in our WS here, or WebSocket, and down here we can do a WS send, WS data dot username. Then we're going to do angle brackets so it's consistent with our send prompt, and then we're going to put in our message text here. I actually forgot, instead of doing WS send, we're just going to broadcast that to all users. Okay, cool. So let's restart our server, and we're going to start the server up. Let's do 2 clients so we can confirm that this works across different clients. We're getting a crash here with the unexpected identifier hi, and that's because we are sending a hi message on a client's connect. So what we can do is we can say const incoming data, and then we're going to give it the type of incoming message, just so we have this variable already set up, and we're going to wrap this in a try catch statement here. And then we're going to assign incoming data this value. Change this from a const to let so we can make it mutable. For our error, we are going to catch it, and if we get an error, we're just going to say console.error, error when parsing user message, and we're just going to give it error return so that we do not continue any further. This will prevent malformed messages like the hi one to not crash the server entirely. So if I start up a new client, guest 68 has joined, instead of crashing the server, we'll just get an error when it parses the message. And our client, let's just remove that. Okay, let's start up our bun server. Let's start up our client. You'll notice we don't get that error anymore. And we're going to start up a second client here. So yeah, there we go. We got all the guests joining the chat. If I say something like hello, I realized I forgot to get rid of the WS send message at the bottom here. So that is my bad. Let's just say hey, and you'll notice it says our guest 48. We get hey. There's also a send prompt here that should be removed. We'll look into that in a second. But on our other client, we'll also get the message from guest 48. And as guest 27, let's say hi with an exclamation mark. Okay, and our other client should get that message as well on their side. Very good. There are some issues that we need to sort out in the client. Main issue is that we're still getting this send prompt, even though we are supposed to be clearing it when we send our message. All right, so the fix is actually fairly easy. Essentially, what we're going to do is for our clear input, we're going to add a Boolean as a parameter, and we're going to say submitted. And by default, it's going to be false. But if it is true, if submitted, we're going to do readline.moveCursor process.std out. And we're going to say 0 and -1. Our delta y here is -1, and that's going to tell our readline interface that we're moving the cursor up 1 line. And then we're clearing the current line and moving the cursor to the first character. So then in our setup input for our line here, for our clear input, we need to pass in true because we are submitting it. So let's just type in bun client. Okay, there we go. Guest 15 has joined the chat. And let's say hey. And as you can see, we no longer get that send duplication. It will just say the message immediately. One other thing that we can test is we can say -u, and sure, we'll do funny guest. This will set our username. So if I join now, funny guest has joined the chat. I can say hey. We can start a new client with another name. We'll say another guest, just like so, and then I'll say how's it going, another guest, how's it going, and we should see their username here. So that was a quick run through on how to make your own live chat in Bun using their native WebSockets, which is very fast. I can show you here their WebSockets does have a comparison here. Bun WebSockets are fast. For a simple chat room on Linux x64, Bun can handle 7 times more requests per second than Node.js. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to make a WebSocket server, this is definitely the way to do it. It's very easy, very quick, and as you can also see, very, very fast. So if you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments below. I'm Average, and have yourself a great day. Bye.